Welcome to IVF This, episode 25, Minimum Baseline. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. I'm a mother to two beautiful and feral boys. I'm married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my friends. I'm so excited to talk with you again. Before I get into today's topic, I want to let you know a little bit of a limitation about me. So I exclusively use Apple Podcasts. I just always have. I've always had an Apple device. There's no Apple superiority here. In fact, I talk a lot of crap about Apple, but I did not realize until very recently that on Spotify and Google Podcasts, you cannot leave reviews. And I've encouraged on several of my podcast episodes for you to leave a review and rate it. So I'm going to pivot a little bit, acknowledge the limited information that I had about Google Podcast and Spotify, which are huge, wonderful platforms. So if there is an episode that really resonates for you, take a screenshot and share it on your socials. You can tag me on either Facebook or Instagram at IVF This Coaching. But if we can't do ratings and reviews, well, we're just going to figure out a workaround to help get the message out to other IVFers and other people who are going through infertility, and that this podcast offers tangible opportunities for you to grow and learn more about yourself throughout your infertility and IVF journey. So if an episode really shines to you, or if there's something that's said, take a screenshot of that episode, share it in your stories, tag me. I would love to hear from you guys and connect with you on social media as well. So I wanted to put that out there. I'm sorry that, the vast majority of my listeners listen through Spotify and Google Podcasts. So I was telling you guys to do stuff that I didn't know you could do, or couldn't do rather. So I just wanted to share that. But today I want to share something that's kind of been going on for me personally. So the Hubs and I have started the process for our next round of IVF. If you've listened to this podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about how we did our first full round of IVF in it's already been the fall of 2016. So 4 years ago now. And we had our first transfer that was successful. And then we had our second transfer in September of 2020 that did not result in a pregnancy. And I took several months off. My knee-jerk reaction was to go straight into another cycle. But when I was coaching myself and getting coached, I realized that I wanted that because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to make that pain of the loss go away as quickly as possible. And the thing that my brain offered me that would do that would be to jump right into another cycle. And that's what happens for me. And I know it happens for other people, but when I feel that sense of urgency to do something, whether it's to buy something or to go into another IVF cycle or something like that, it's because I'm trying to avoid feeling something. I think that a different feeling is going to be on the other side of that. And so I always try to be very careful and very mindful when I feel that sense of urgency to intentionally slow down and really figure out, okay, this probably is something I want, but why do I want it? Why is it important to me? Is it in the effort, like it was in my case, to maybe put like a salve on my heart as I was going through that grieving process? So we took several months off. In fact, my husband and I agreed together that we wouldn't even discuss going into another round, like really discuss it. We talked about it a little bit, but not really discuss it until after the new year. So once after the new year came, we were both like, this is something we really want. We want to add to our family. Obviously, IVF isn't something that all of us are like super excited, like, yes, this is exactly how I thought my life was going to go and exactly what I wanted. But we did intentionally take that break so that when we came back to that decision, we knew it was because this is what we wanted and not just because we were in the grieving process. We still have grief around that. We obviously wanted that transfer to be successful and it wasn't. So there is still disappointment, but it certainly isn't as acute and as sharp as it was then. And now we're several months into this podcast. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm managing the process and kind of woven throughout the next few episodes. So by the time this episode comes out, I'll already have started my stimulation, unless there's like a drastic change to our plan and our protocol. So I usually have a few episodes in the can. So I think this one will drop about 3-ish weeks after I write and record it. And something I have been experiencing a lot recently is anxiety and overwhelm. Like a lot. And I've talked about how I experience anxiety on a pretty much a daily basis. I think a lot of us do. Most of the time for me, it's like this low level hum of static in the background, like almost like a low level white noise that just kind of plays. Right now it's really there and it's very prominent for me. And so I'm just kind of carrying it around with me. And so that's what I do normally. But right now, like it's kind of ratcheted up all the way to 11. I found myself waking up during the night. I'm eating more. I'm using social media more and kind of withdrawing into myself, which is historically my go-to move in times of heightened anxiety and stress. The things that I normally do, like making a food plan, sticking to it, doing paper thinking, 30 minutes of exercise, having a daily calendar, and keeping my calendar, whether it's client calls or writing or whatever, I'm not really doing those as consistently as I have historically done them. And I want to share this with you guys for a couple of reasons. So number one, I want you to know that your coach is totally human. Like I'm sure some or most of you listening to can relate to what I'm saying. And I think by sharing that with you that I am experiencing it might help you know that no one has it all figured out. Like no one. I am human. We are human. We all have human brains and we all have these messy thoughts and feelings sometimes, and it's totally normal. In fact, it's totally expected in times of heightened stress or anxiety. And number two, I want to share with you the technique that my coach taught me many years ago. And I'm going to teach you to help during times where you are struggling. Maybe you can't find the want or desire to do things you would normally do. And these tend to be the times when we are extra hard on ourselves about the things that we quote unquote should or should not be doing, right? So this concept is called the minimum baseline. Again, I did not come up with this concept. I think like a lot of things, it's been recycled 1,000 times and everyone puts their own special sauce on it. But I think it's a really enormously powerful tool to have in your back pocket on days when you don't feel like you have anything to give. A minimum baseline is basically the least amount of anything that you are willing to do for a day or maybe several days. Now, an example of minimum baseline could be how many days you're willing to go without taking a shower. Maybe it's what you're willing to wear when you leave the house to go someplace public. Maybe leggings are okay, but house shoes are not. And this is by no means a judgment of either of those things, just trying to illustrate the point. We have minimum baselines for all sorts of things. The amount of food we eat, how long we go without seeing family, how many hours we want to try and get sleep at night. Every one of us has a minimum baseline built into our lives. We just don't think about it within that context. Maybe someone thinks it's been 3 days and since I've done some sort of exercise, and that's completely unacceptable to me. Or unless there is an act of God, I will arrive to work no later than this specific time every single day. Maybe it's been a week since my partner and I had sex and I don't want to go that long without it, right? They show up in all these areas of our lives. Now, here's the thing. I think that creating a minimum baseline, like intentionally mapping out for yourself this idea, is super important during infertility, fertility treatments, and beyond. The wide breadth of emotions that we experience during this time, not necessarily the highs, but definitely the lows, which is pretty normal and expected, right? We get into trouble when we don't really expect them to be there, when they kind of take us by surprise. Then, more often than not, when we are experiencing a low, we kick the crap out of ourselves for the laundry list of things we have in our head that we should be doing. So we're already feeling low, maybe sadness, grief, anger, jealousy, right? Whatever it is. And then we pile on the 100 pounds of shame for not doing the things that we tell ourselves we should be doing, which then only serves to make us feel worse, and on and on. The cycle just continues. Now, I don't suggest specific minimum baselines to my clients because, well, how the hell am I supposed to know what is their minimum baseline, right? There's no way that I could know what you need or what you decide you need as your minimum baseline. But what I do is talk them through the things that they think should be there, right? So if daily exercise is important to someone and we're planning on a down day, which can happen at any time, right? We revisit or deconstruct what that might look like for a minimum baseline day. Maybe it's 15 minutes of yoga, taking a 30-minute walk or a 10-minute walk. Maybe it's breath work or a minute of silent meditation or something like that. But it's taking what your normal, when you're feeling really good, that normal baseline that you have, and we're giving ourselves some compassion and grace around it, where we're not eliminating it as part of our daily activities, but we're ratcheting down expectations based on how we're currently feeling so that we don't end up kicking the crap out of ourselves when we don't meet that expectation, right? I had a client tell me that she ordinarily does a load of laundry per day, in her words, to keep on top of it, which is totally fine. I have a lot of respect for that because every Sunday I seem to be cursing myself for waiting all week to do all the laundry. So I actually found more power to her on that situation. But for her minimum baseline, it looks more like I'll make sure that I have clean clothes to wear for work and the rest can wait. For someone else, it might be going to work and not calling out, or spend 5 minutes journaling or paper thinking, right? The point isn't what you're doing. There's no metric for what is good. There is no metric for what is a good minimum baseline because the minimum baseline is entirely based on your life, choices, and your preferences. And it usually includes more than one thing. So let me give you an example of what mine has looked like over the past few years. So if I'm not feeling well, maybe I'm sick or I'm having a down day, this is my commitment to myself. I get out of bed. I take a shower. If I have client calls, then I do those unless I'm sick in a way that would prevent me from doing those, like a fever, losing my voice, vomiting, something like that. I will spend 10 minutes outside, even if it's raining or cold or most likely in Texas, unbearably hot. But taking 10 minutes where I can just connect to nature is really important to me and my soul. I'll spend a minimum of 2 minutes paper thinking, journaling, because that is such an important part of my own self-development. I do not skip this. It also tends to help me process whatever it is that I am going through. And of course, that's just an added bonus for me. I review my calendar. If I have any impending deadlines for something like within the next 48 hours, then I will do my best to focus on that specific task and get it done. But when I say focus, I focus on B- work. There is no room for perfectionism in your minimum baseline. I think I'm probably going to do a future episode on perfectionism because I think that is something that a lot of us struggle with. And obviously, I have a lot of opinions about it, which I know is shocking to you guys. But B- work is the idea that you can still get really good quality stuff out into the world. You can still be very productive, but not sit there and redo and refine everything to death in an effort to not feel like you're going to be judged, which is what perfectionism is. We're not here for that, not really ever, but especially during your minimum baseline. If there's an opportunity for me to rest, then that's what I do too. And rest is not something that comes easily to me, right? Whenever I sit down, I'm typically going through the catalog of things that I quote unquote should be doing. So rest is not something that I easily fall into, right? And rest can look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Maybe it's taking time off of social media, taking a nap, going for a hike. Rest is for your soul the way that sleep is for your body. Minimum baselines for me also include picking up my kids from school because I'm in charge of pickups, unless I'm sick to a point where I can't do that, which is pretty rare, but also feeding them dinner. Now, because of B- work, I know that dinner can be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a side of goldfish, and that is absolutely perfect for them. Okay, so that's an example of my minimum baseline. The reason the minimum baseline is important is because it's just as easy to do those things as it is to not do those things, because it's so easy to talk yourself out of it, especially when you're having a down day. Basically, it's really easy to tell yourself that none of this stuff will matter anyway. I think I've told myself that a million times. But with a minimum baseline, all of a sudden you're doing this minimum amount of work, thinking just for the sake of honoring yourself and your commitments in the world. Just for the sake of doing things that you say you're going to do, but also shifting out of that perfectionistic nature that I think so much of us have. It switches the emphasis of doing everything for other people, because that's what we've been conditioned to do, doing all the things, looking perfectly polished, looking like we have it all together, to doing things that will serve you and what you need most in that moment. A lot of us, and myself included, we have these really high productivity times. Maybe it's like weeks and weeks at a time. Maybe you do several day sprints, and then on the weekends, you just need to completely recharge. Whatever it is normal to cycle through productivity like that. No one is supposed to run 100 miles a day every single day. Yet that is the standard bearer that our culture has set for us, and that is the standard that we have also embraced. I can't tell you how many of my clients tell me, I just want to show up as my best self, do my best every day, be the best, the best, the best, the best. The best isn't the standard bearer. Exceptional or perfection isn't sustainable every day. If it was, then that would be your baseline. Can we please normalize the natural ebb and flow of productivity? Please. Can we normalize that we all have to recharge? Can we normalize that there are days when we will need to kind of shut down, almost like a factory reboot when your phone doesn't update? It needs to shut down sometimes. You need to shut down sometimes. It's a very normal, natural, human thing to do. And we just don't give ourselves enough grace, compassion, or space to do that. So I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with the quote unquote self-care that is kind of messaged in the world. Because if you've been going balls to the wall for 7 or more days straight or whatever, what's not going to recharge you? A bubble bath or whatever BS the pseudo self-care messaging is today. Like real self-care, genuine, authentic self-care is self-compassion, is giving yourself grace and understanding that functioning at 100%, 100% of the time is not realistic. And when we can't, because we're, human, we kick the crap out of ourselves. Even thinking about starting an IVF cycle, we have all of these plans that we make, trying to be productive, trying to be all the things to all the people. And we tell ourselves, maybe we'll slow down a little bit, say the day of the egg retrieval, and then maybe another day after. Except that we forget we have literally been running an insane marathon for the past 14 days or however long you stim for. And then we throw on the assault of the medical procedure, and we just expect ourselves to bounce back when we can't be at peak performance for any or all of that time. We tell ourselves we're not doing enough, that we should be doing more, that we're letting ourselves down, that we're letting other people down. There's no room to be human. So setting a minimum baseline allows for those moments of humanness. So I love the example of the minimum baseline to help with humanness and those moments when we really do need to slow ourselves down and to offer ourselves the grace and opportunity to not be all of those things for every person. And you can absolutely apply it to that, but you can also apply this concept to anything. Even if you're wanting to maybe start a new habit, set a minimum baseline. Maybe you want to start exercising and it's not really a habit for you. And then you set a minimum baseline for however many minutes a day for however many days a week. I'll give you an example. I had a client when I was first coaching that wanted to go to the gym to work out. She wanted to eventually build up to taking some of the classes that the gym offered, but just the idea of spending an hour plus felt so daunting that she wouldn't go at all. So we started with 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes included the 5 minutes to and from the gym. She literally got dressed, drove 5 minutes to the gym, got on the treadmill, and walked for 5 minutes. And after that, when she hit that 5-minute mark, knowing that that last third of the 15 minutes would be driving home, she could come home if she chose, but that her minimum baseline had been met, and she would do that 3 times a week. Now, did she typically only walk for 5 minutes? No, absolutely. She would hit the 5 minutes and then her brain would be over all of the drama about how long it's going to take and how difficult it's going to be. And then she could ease into working out for 30, 45, or even 60 minutes. It was just about bypassing the brain's built-in BS thought errors that we all have, that our brain throws us whenever we are trying something new or uncomfortable. Another example could be that you want to prepare more meals at home. Maybe your minimum baseline is that you start with like a Stouffer's lasagna, like the frozen meals that you can heat up. I get that nutritionally they're not the best, but doing that can help you get past your mind drama of wanting to go from eating out regularly to I have to have this beautifully and healthfully plated meal 5 days a week, which is where our brains go, right? There's no nuance in the brain. So it goes from it has to be this way to it has to be that way. And those are usually diametrically opposite. So if you are typically eating out several meals a day and you don't work out, the image that you have in your brain is wearing Lululemon leggings and drinking kale shakes and eating 3 healthy, square, beautiful meals a day, right? That's just where our brains go. So this is just kind of a brain hack that you can use. So you can set minimum baselines for days that you're just performing basic functions at work or in your home or whatever. And the goal for that is to build more humanness into our lives and create more opportunities for compassion for ourselves. And the added bonus is that you can use this brain hack when and if you want to start a new habit or something like that. Currently, I'm working on trying to train myself to get up earlier and earlier in the mornings. I have, and for a long time, have had aspirations about being a morning exerciser. My goal is to get up at 5 a.m. and get in an exercise and shower before the rest of my family gets up and to it. I'm not pushing myself too hard right now because I'm trying to give myself some space for around not feeling great while I'm on Lupron and then when I go into my stim cycle and such. But I think it's still a great hack to have in your back pocket to help with rest and new things that you want to challenge yourself with. Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you beautiful people today. I hope you have an amazing day. And remember, I adore you and you have got this. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.